Get the juices flowing, you know? All right. Let's get it rocking. One Straw Hat says, "Hey, Lavi, put down the vape. It's time for the show." Listen, man, I would never let the show be obstructed for that. Don't worry, we got you. Glad to be here. Deeper Dive, Dave Lochran, and Adam Haircut Shar. We are happy to be with you. Ace King says Laffy is high as hell. That's actually not true at all. I don't even smoke weed. No joke. I don't. I know most people don't believe that. Like I've told people that and they're like, yeah, okay, you're full of it. But no, I don't.
This is probably the only DFS show that you can find where neither of the hosts smoke weed.
It really is. It probably is. And I'm sure that no one's going to believe us, but that's okay. You know what sucks, by the way? Daylight savings was awesome when I was up doing research and writing and stuff, and it turned 2 a.m., but it really turned 1 a.m. But now it's getting dark at like 5 o'clock on the East Coast. Who
Yeah,
wants that?
it sucks. I looked out the window like 10 minutes ago and it was already getting dark.
Yeah, not fun. Anyway, welcome to everyone. Man, I love this show. I love this show. Let me tell you something. 4 games, but we still got, look, the chat's popping, everything's going. Hit us with the thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know exactly when the show starts. And you see that code at the bottom, Deeper Dive? Yeah, if you go to awesemo.com and you check out the plans page and you use the promo code Deeper Dive, you can get a free week of awesemo.com content, which at this rate, why would you not do it if you're not already a premium member, given the fact that we already get this show and now you can see exactly what's behind paywall, like our deep dive article, the projections, ownership, and everything else. Ace King, much love, best show in the industry. That's right. And we bring it behind paywall on awesemo.com too. So use the promo code Deeper Dive. Adam, what do you say we jump into it?
Yeah, let's go. 4 decent games, I think.
I think so too. Houston and OKC. Revenge game for Melo, which it's really not. I mean, who cares, right? He's actually on a better team, and he's Carmelo Anthony. But just taking a look at some of the odds here, you know, we've talked about it quite a bit this year. Houston, this game is a 214 total. The Houston Rockets are favored by 5, but it is kind of interesting because this is not what you would expect. Like this, you would think it'd be a pretty fast-paced spot. OKC's playing up in pace this year, top 6. I'm not sure that it's a massive differential with Schroeder over Westbrook, but Houston is down there at 23rd, definitely playing at a slower pace. Not to say it makes a huge difference here, but last year we would have seen this total up around like 227 or at least over 220, which is kind of fascinating given their style of play in 2018.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think has been really weird this year is, not only are teams playing a lot faster as a whole, but a lot of the teams that you kind of just blindly look and you're like, oh, this is a fast team. They're really not. Like Houston, Phoenix, both of those teams are paced down games this year.
It is. By the way, Taz Journey said, you guys made me 290 points last night. I still lost, but thanks, guys. Really? I thought 290 cashed in all tournaments. I cashed like 281. I don't know. Weird.
Yeah.
Maybe it was FanDuel.
Yeah, so it could have been FanDuel.
Could have been FanDuel. All right, let's jump into the players here, Adam. We'll start with the OKC side. Russell Westbrook is out. I think we expected that to be the case. Josh mentioned in the strategy show that the odds or the line was pointing that way as well. Dennis Schroeder yesterday really was not a disappointment. He wasn't phenomenal, but 28 points, 7 rebounds, block, a steal across 34 minutes. I want to start with him, and then we'll talk about George, who was a colossal disappointment. But Dennis Schroeder, get this, Adam, 0 assists. I think he had 8 potential assists. He's averaging like 12 potential assists in games without Westbrook this year. But 8 potential assists, you should at least be coming around 3 or 4. That's just some awful luck for Dennis Schroeder to come up with 0 dimes across 34 minutes, even though that game had a very, very low finishing total. I think somewhere around like 183.
Yeah, just a really weird game. I went back and did the same thing you did, it sounds like, and looked at his potential assists in games without Westbrook this year, averaging 12.3. ended up coming up with a 30.8% expected assist percentage over those 3 games with Westbrook out. So I think that it's clearly just unlucky that Schroeder got 0 assists last night. I do still like him a lot here. Should play 34 to 36 minutes. Has about a 30% usage rate alongside Paul George without Westbrook, in addition to the about 30% expected assist percentage. So really no reason to think that he doesn't do well again tonight. Houston, while they're not a fast-paced team anymore, they have struggled defensively. So I think it's a good spot in that regard. And his price tag is still very fair for the minutes that he's going to play. So I really like him a lot. Paul George, it's a little bit different for me. I like him. I don't have a problem with him. It's just that I think his position is really, really deep. On FanDuel, it gets really tough for me to get to George because he's $300 less than Kevin Durant is. So it's tough. Like I like Durant a lot. On DraftKings, George is a lot cheaper than Durant, but you have Giannis who's priced down to $11,000. So I would like to get to Giannis if I can. So I like George, but I think that Schroeder probably ends up being the guy that I have more of between the two of them.
Yeah, on DraftKings, I don't think George is that tough to get to. On because he's sub
Yeah.
9K. And you know what? Yesterday, I think he had like 25% usage, but that's not where like he played 39 minutes. Um, this game, he's going to see ample opportunity here. Like, don't use one game as as the baseline. We know that Paul George with Westbrook off the court is somebody that is going to have the opportunity at least to make a big impact, and that's really all I care about. The final results are obviously important, but not as important as why you're playing them in the first place. And looking at the field goal attempts yesterday, Schroeder at 19, George at 16, and then everyone else was below 10 outside of Alex Abrinas, and I don't expect to see him shoot 3 for 12 again or even jack up 12 shots and 10 threes like he did. I mean, there's no question, Adam, in any matchup, Schroeder and Paul George will be the guys to soak up the large majority of the total possessions. However, you make a good point on FanDuel. It's a lot harder to get to him, and we'll speak to it later. You just said you really like Durant. I really like Durant. Maybe it's for the same reasons, but there's something about this matchup that we'll talk about at the last game that sets up better for Durant than it does for the other players, or at least some of the other players, namely Curry, on this Warriors squad. So on OKC, we've pretty much broken this down. Now, let me just ask you before we move on, though. You talk about George is easier to play on DraftKings, harder on FanDuel, but at 8,900 on DraftKings, let's say you told me you're playing 20 lineups tonight, right?
Yeah.
Right now, still preliminary to some extent, but how much George do you have right now on DraftKings?
I haven't made them yet, but I'm guessing I'll
Okay.
probably end up, I don't know, 30 to 40% probably on DraftKings.
Okay, so that's still a decent amount. And
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
probably my guess is that, say, in large field tournaments, George is probably going to be, I don't know, how high on do you think Paul George will be?
Probably around like 40.
Yeah, because our ownership projections actually have him a lot lower than that on DraftKings, which if that's the case at 8,900, if he comes in anywhere around that, and by the way, happy to share some of the information, but again, Deeper Dive promo code, get the free week, and you can see all of the ownership projections by using Deeper Dive. Paul George is coming in, I'll just say 17%. If he comes in under 20% at 8,900, there's no doubt that I'm just going to have a whole lot more interest in him. We won't
Yeah.
know obviously until then, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense because the position is so deep.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else on OKC pique your interest?
Yeah, Steven Adams, especially so on DraftKings, I think he's a good play in anything. He's 5,800, which is just a really insane price tag. He's not quite as productive without Westbrook on the floor. His usage goes down a little bit. His rebounding goes up. If you look since the start of last season, he goes from about 0.95 DraftKings points per minute when Westbrook is on the floor to about 0.88 without him. So a slight decrease, but the price tag on DraftKings is just I think really, really good for what should be like 34 minutes from Adams. On FanDuel, the price isn't as nice. He's 7,800 there. And I would rather take the $300 in savings to DeAndre Ayton in tournaments. But I still think that Adams gives you a really nice floor for cash games. And he's still a lot cheaper there than Yusuf Nurkic is. So I think that Adams is a pretty good play.
Yeah. I mean, is there a positive correlation, with Westbrook on the floor for Adam? There is, but there's also value at 5,800 on DraftKings. I mean, you're talking about a wide price or a big disparity in pricing. FanDuel 78, DraftKings 5,800. That's a 2K difference in price. Now, FanDuel is always a little bit higher, but this is quite a bit higher. And like you said, I don't know if you're getting the ceiling game here from Adams, but it's hard to think that you don't have a decent floor at 58. I mean, just think about it like this, in terms of comparative pricing, he's basically, excuse me, the same price as Montrezl Harrell, and he's a couple $100 more than Boban and Melo.
Right. And in terms of the matchup, I don't think it's a great one for him either. Houston actually has allowed the fourth fewest offensive rebounds per game to their opponents, also the fourth fewest offensive rebounds per 100 possessions. So, and that's where Steven Adams, really can do a lot of damage. He's one of the best offensive rebounds in the league. So I don't think it's a great spot from that regard, but I just think the price tag's really, really good.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's switch to the Houston side. Again, 214 total. Houston 5-point favorites. So, despite having, you always have to wonder, like, how much difference does Westbrook really make in this game being out? Like, Schroeder's probably, and correct me if I'm forgetting someone, but I mean, he's got to be the best, or if I am forgetting someone, one of the best. I have him right now. I can't think. The best backup point guard in the league.
Sounds right.
Right?
Sounds right. Yeah.
YouTube chat might think of someone that I'm forgetting, and I'm sure it's possible, but like, he's up there. So it's still a big downgrade from Westbrook to Schroeder from a fantasy sense, but from an actual, does this hurt their chances of winning standpoint, I'm not sure it makes that big of a difference, but the line guy, I guess, says otherwise.
I mean, I still think it makes a huge difference, but I don't. It's not. I think I would agree with you in that it's not like I'm looking at this game and I'm concerned about Oklahoma City staying in it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not at home that we expect them just to get blown off the court. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, Houston's not great either. So
no, you're right. Yeah, Westbrook, obviously one of the best players ever. I just think that this game still stays competitive. Now, looking too, Adam, at the just expected totals, you have Houston at 109.5, and then you have OKC at 104.5. Not the highest total. I'm curious where you're at on Harden, because there are a lot of good plays. We haven't even gotten to Giannis or KD yet. Harden, you could very much argue, is underpriced on DraftKings, right? He's 10,100. Chris Paul's 8,300. On FanDuel, Harden's 11.5. Paul is also underpriced at 8.3. I'd say more so than DraftKings, actually. Probably fairly priced on DraftKings, to rephrase that. What are your thoughts on this backcourt for Houston?
Yeah, it kind of scares me if I don't end up with a lot of them, but I just don't project either of them that highly whenever they're both on the floor. They play about 75% of their minutes together. And if you go since the start of last season and you take, Harden's usage rate and his assist percentage with and without Chris Paul, and you multiply it by the amount of time he's going to be on the floor, you end up projecting a 34% usage rate, a 36.5% assist percentage, which is obviously really good, but it's like Devin Booker territory. And it's not what James Harden, even at a reduced price tag for James Harden, it's still not what you're really looking for at that price tag, especially when you factor in that he doesn't rebound like Giannis does. So, and the same for Chris Paul. Like, if you factor in the time that he's going to spend with and without James Harden on the floor, you get a 22.5% usage rate and a 34% assist percentage. So I just think both guys are fairly priced. Can Harden go out here and, if he chooses to, dominate usage in this particular game and have a much higher ceiling than a $10,000 price tag? Absolutely. And I think that that's the argument for him in tournaments. But I just don't think that, from a medium projection standpoint, at least, that he's actually really that underpriced with Chris Paul being healthy.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Not to mention that Giannis saw his price come down significantly too.
Right. On DraftKings, where Harden is 10,100, and that kind of jumps off the page, Giannis is only 11.
And that jumps off the page.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
Durant's only, 10-3, Curry's 10-2. So, it's not as egregious when you look at everyone else. On FanDuel, Giannis is I think 12-5, but Harden's also up to 11-5.
Yep, agreed. By the way, I wanted to mention something that I saw in chat. Jason Haskell said, "Are we not going to talk about Abrinas or Grant or Diallo? It's kind of easy to analyze the big three. It's the fringe pieces that make the difference." It's definitely the fringe pieces that make the difference, which is why we, I think, dig deeper than any other show here when it comes to finding some gems deep in the rotation. But if we don't mention guys, it's not because we don't want to talk about him. It's because we probably just don't have much interest in him. You talked about Grant. I think Grant at his price is perfectly fine, and he's getting good run. But in terms of like Diallo or Abrinas, I just, even on a 4-game slate, I just really don't have much interest whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, Abrinas got up 12 shots last night, which is nice, and he certainly has the potential, I guess, to get hot and give you, a very scoring dependent game. But it's not even like, and on FanDuel it's different. Like FanDuel, obviously you can go to these guys because you can just drop their score. But on DraftKings, it's not like Abrinas is 3K. Like he's 3,900. I think that there's a lot of different ways I would rather go on this particular slate than Abrinas. Most of them
Yeah.
coming from the Milwaukee game, which we'll get to. But I just think that at that price, like on FanDuel again, it's totally different. You can mix him in. It doesn't really matter because if he shoots well,
Of
you keep him. If
course.
he doesn't shoot well, you drop him.
I'd
But
rather even have Beverly over him on DraftKings. He's
right,
$100 less, and
that's
if SGA starts again, there's a very good chance Beverly sees another 30 plus minutes because there's one of his backups that won't be right behind him.
right. Pat Beverly's not even close to like it's an easy play on Beverly. But even guys, which whoever your favorite Golden State guy is, whether it's Bell or McKinney or Jerebko, I would say Dante DiVincenzo has
DiVincenzo.
yeah, is very similar to Abrinas. I actually like him a little bit more because of the pace of that game. So, yeah, I mean, I think Grant is fairly priced. I assume I'll end up with some Grant, but I don't really see getting
Yeah.
to Abrinas, and Diallo's basically just the Paul George backup.
And these are all things that we will certainly get to. Don't worry. Um, Anything else from Houston? I mean, you have Capella up there at 6,900 on DK. He's the highest priced center, even though his price has come down recently. Second highest priced on FanDuel, 7,900. You have Melo and you have a bunch of other role players, but no one that jumps off the page to me at least.
Yeah, have you seen Eric Gordon news yet?
I believe he's still questionable from everything I've seen.
Oh yeah, that's all I've seen. Like he
He did
practiced.
practice.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
practiced yesterday, so I'm assuming that he plays. Um, I don't think it changes a ton either way. It would be more shots for Melo if Gordon doesn't play, but and maybe a couple more minutes, but and it would have either Gary Clark or Gerald Green, staying in the rotation. But yeah, overall, I don't really have anything from Houston that I think is great. Like I don't have an issue with Clint Capella at 6,900, but
Mhm.
there are a couple of guys a little bit cheaper that I prefer.
Yeah, and I think Ennis, even if Gordon's back, Ennis still plays his like 22 to 26 minutes or
I,
so.
I have Ennis at 28
20, you
minutes.
have him at 28.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
what he
him.
played last game.
I have him a couple less than that, just because it's been too all over the place for me to just go from last game. I mean, it's very possible, but he has just been all over the map from a playing time standpoint. It's
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of
assuming.
strange.
I'm just assuming that he's like ramped up coming back from his injury, and he stays in that range.
Yeah, it could definitely be the case. Would you play James Ennis or Abrines? I would probably still play Ennis
I,
here
I think I'd play Abrinas just because he's the one that's more likely to shoot 12 times and maybe like
and miss 10
8 of
times.
them
Yeah. Yeah. It's possible. Plus, look, he did get up 12 shots. I think we haven't gotten to those games yet, and that's what we're gonna do now. Well, we will shortly at least as we cover all four of them. Boston and Phoenix. Let's take a look at the odds, Adam. We got Phoenix by Phoenix given 9.5 points. They're 9.5 point home dogs, 214.5 total here. By the way, the Golden State total jumped up to 241. But Boston and Phoenix, Josh and I talked about this at length on today's strategy show. If you guys haven't checked them out, be sure to do so 9 a.m. Eastern each morning, but you can really watch it throughout the day at any point of the day. They go long, but I know a lot of people like the more long form shows. Phoenix and Boston, 9.5 point spread, 214.5 total. I want to start with Boston because looking at this team outside of Kyrie Irving, who is, 85 on FanDuel, 8K on DraftKings, and this dude's finally starting to wake up, right? Like it took a little while, and now Kyrie is back to the Kyrie that we knew and loved. 28 plus points, real points in 3 of his last 4 games. The numbers are coming. The shooting has been much more efficient, and he's jacking up a ton of shots each night. Really good to see. He's actually the only player on this team with a usage rate of 25% or higher. Everyone else is right around that 20-21% range, Adam. However, when you look at some of the prices here, Marcus Morris on FanDuel's 5,100. You take Jason Tatum, who is 64 on both sites and is pretty much locked into big minutes every single night. You can go even further. And the problem is it's so hard to predict which one of these guys is going to get the job done. But even Jaylen Brown at 4,800, grinded out player, defensive player Marcus Smart 3,700. Point I'm making is against this bad Phoenix team that ranks, where are they? What do they rank? 27th in defensive efficiency, and play at a reasonable pace. This just seems like a game where someone, I don't know who, but at least a couple of these Boston players are going to just far surpass value with how cheap they are.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's not like when I wrote the deep dive article today, I didn't have any of these guys, I don't think, as like core plays for me because I really don't know where the production will come from. But that's not to say that I don't think, if you're making a bunch of lineups that you should, not have exposure to these guys. Kyrie,
and that's kind of the problem. We don't know where it's coming from.
Right. Like in general, I don't know, I kind of doubt that tonight will be much different. In general, I normally just do like a max 1 rule on Boston because normally someone has a good game. I don't have any idea who it is. They have so many good players that it's tough to get excited about the upside of playing a bunch of them together. But, Kyrie clearly has plenty of upside here. He's had a usage rate higher than his season average in 4 consecutive games. Seems like he might finally be getting into a rhythm, like you said, after dealing with injuries. So I think he's a good play. Jason Tatum, is playing 34 minutes in competitive games. Also, keep an eye on Gordon Hayward. Brad Stevens said that he assumes Hayward will play both games of this back-to-back, but he hasn't done it yet this season. So there's a chance that we get Gordon Hayward ruled out tonight with him playing at Utah tomorrow, in which case you would get a bump for, Marcus Morris, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier in terms of minutes.
Yeah, good point. That's definitely something you want to watch here. Because if Hayward's out, I mean, Morris, it's tough to say with Morris, right? Because he's already getting good run. But if Hayward's out, I would put Morris around 31 minutes in a close game.
I think it would really solidify Morris's minutes from, the mid-20s to the upper 20s, low 30s.
Absolutely. And you know what? Not a ton of talk about Irving because I think everyone's trying to find that diamond in the rough among the cheap Boston guys. But it could easily be Kyrie that goes for 50 plus again against this bad Phoenix backcourt. Like, no question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not opposed to Kyrie here whatsoever. Let's be fair. When Kyrie's at his best, he's not that different from like a Dame Lillard. They're both going to have games where they disappoint you because their peripherals lack at times, but then they're both going to have blow up games where they go for 40 plus real points and 60 plus fantasy points. Kyrie can do that. And he's proving recently that he's back. I mean, the dude is back. We're starting to see the vintage Kyrie numbers, and I definitely like that. On the other side, and if you guys have any questions specifically about Boston guys, feel free to throw them out there because it's a lot to talk about when it comes to Boston. Ashley McDaniel says, think Boston is going to try and showcase Terry Rozier to Phoenix for a trade? I have no idea, Adam. That's a tough one.
I'm not factoring that in because I think Phoenix already wants Rozier. I don't think Boston will trade him. Like there's not a lack of interest from other teams in Terry Rozier.
When Terry Rozier was showcased against the Sixers in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
That was all.
If Boston were to trade Rozier, they'll have 6 or 7 teams just lining up.
Oh yeah, and some good teams too, not just some bottom feeders. On the other side, this was a topic of conversation this morning. I know the matchup sucks, but it's hard for me to just totally ignore a guy like Ayton when I know what he's capable of producing. And he hasn't been spectacular lately, but as a rookie big man at 6,800 on DraftKings specifically, I'm not, Eric Gordon ruled out, by the way, and Thunder are starting the same lineup. Eric Gordon ruled out for Houston. What are your thoughts on Ayton, man?
I like him, especially in tournaments. Like I don't trust him in cash games. I don't think it's completely necessary when
No.
he's the same price as Steven Adams or more expensive than Steven Adams. But in tournaments, I like him because on DraftKings he's priced down for the matchup. Even on FanDuel, he's affordable at 7,500. But if you're going to attack this Boston team, I think this is the easiest spot to do it at. They are allowing the sixth most rebounds per game to opponents, so that gives him a little bit higher floor than guys who are more dependent on scoring and assists like Devin Booker is. And then Ayton himself is a good passer. He has a 13.5% expected assist percentage this year to go with a 20% usage rate. He just fills out the box score enough. And you've mentioned a couple of times that he's been getting minutes even when the game is not competitive. So that's nice as well. So I like him in tournaments. In cash games, I think that it's kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, it is unnecessary in cash, which is why I have interest in tournaments. Um, that's what it comes down to. Um, California, cool. Come on, Laffy, and ship my money. Y'all aren't gonna even get into detail about Marcus Morris' revenge. Those narratives are usually dumb, but this one's for real. He legit hates Phoenix. Um, I,
Yeah, he needs to play minutes. If he plays minutes, like
yeah, I remember when Markeith Morris, because the brothers didn't want to be separated, right? You remember that?
yeah, they share a
Uh,
bank account.
do they really? That's outrageous. Um, I mean, I, I, I don't know. For me, it's tough, and here's why. It's like as much as you might hate Phoenix, you're playing on a top 4 team in the league, and you no longer play for a team that is one of the worst and has been one of the worst teams ever since you left. Not because he left, but it's not like he left a good team and it's like, why would you get rid of me? So I don't know.
To
Uh,
me, I think the farthest that I would want to go with that narrative is if you're trying to guess what happens with Gordon Hayward. Obviously, he out of these two games, you expect him to play the one at Utah, and if they're kind of on the fence about him playing, maybe you just let Marcus Morris go for it. But
Hey, you never know. Yeah, Gordon Hayward comes up, taps him on the shoulder, like, "Hey, pal, this is your night. This is your night. I'm gonna take a seat. I'm gonna rest this bulky leg." Um, Phoenix, though, outside of Ayton, who I do think is perfectly fine in tournaments. I mean, it's a tough matchup, but as Jamal Murray proved the other day, it's not like over 82 games, no one's going to produce decent numbers against them, especially a guy like Ayton who's got a skill set where he can produce in a multitude of different categories. But I'm curious to know where you stand on the rest of this team because it's not an easy matchup at all. And unlike Boston being undersized at center, where Ayton might be able to capitalize, they're just so good at locking down opposing guards, particularly those who handle the ball.
yeah, so I think it's a really scary spot for Devin Booker. I do think the price tag is nice for his ceiling on this slate, especially. I haven't looked at the ownership projections on him, but if people aren't going to go there, then I mean, the guy's got a 32.5% usage rate. He handles the ball a ton. If someone from the Suns has a big game, it's most likely either Booker or Aiton. So in tournaments, sure, but again, I just don't think you really need to go there in cash. Trevor Ariza's been playing a bunch of minutes, and we had talked about before that his assists are actually up. He's touching the ball a ton. He's more involved as a playmaker than he was with Houston, where he basically had to just go stand, get out of the way, and shoot threes when he was given the ball. So I think that he makes sense as a value play. Again, it's a tough matchup. And then the only other guy that I would add is that the rotation at the four basically is a mess. We saw TJ Warren go back to the bench last game. Not clear if that was just slowly bringing him back from injury or if that's part of the plan. But Ryan Anderson started. He played 22 minutes. He played awful again. TJ Warren played some off the bench. You got Michael Bridges minutes at the four as well. If this game blows out, Bridges clearly is the one that gets more run here at 3,500. So I think that maybe in lineups where you're not going to be hurt by a blowout, like you're not counting on Kyrie and Jason Tatum or something. Having Bridges in there as a value guy makes sense.
It's kind of amazing that it wasn't more than 3 years ago or so that when Anthony Davis was out, Ryan Anderson was a lock.
Yeah, I remember that.
A lock. Like the chalk of all chalk was
Yeah, and
Ryan
he give you 40
Anderson.
plus every single time.
Yep. It was 2015-16 season. So, yeah, it was so what, 4 seasons ago, not yeah, including this one. I mean, it's amazing how quickly he has just disappeared, into irrelevance. He played 22 minutes and took 1 shot. Man, that is something special. Um, you wanna move on?
Yeah.
Alright, and we did have a question. I think it's one we should probably answer quickly. Uh, Someone said, "Why does nobody love Al Horford tonight?" I'm assuming he really loves Al Horford tonight. So, tell him why you do or don't love Al Horford tonight.
I have Horford as like a perfectly average play. I have
Yeah,
him projected for like 33 points at 6,300. So
right. I
yeah,
think a lot of it just comes down to the other centers that are similarly priced, just that from a ceiling standpoint.
yeah,
Like in cash, if you wanted to play Horford, I wouldn't think twice about like I think that's perfectly fine. Uh, but it's from a floor standpoint, is Adams' floor that much lower at a $500 discount? I think he's
yeah,
just in a weird spot.
yeah. I have Adams projected for almost exactly the same points at a cheaper price,
Right. All
and then
right.
I think Nurkic has a higher ceiling.
Correct. Clippers, Portland. Let's do it. We got 2 to go here on a short 4 gamer. Portland is a 5.5 point favorite at home. Nice little 224 total, getting up 10 points from the previous 2 games. And then the next one just blows all of them out of the water. We'll get to that last, of course. The Blazers favored here, Adam. We'll start with them. A lot to talk about in this game. Why don't we go ahead and kick it off with the backcourt? CJ McCollum coming off a 64 fantasy point game with 40 real points on 17 for 16 shooting and 5 for 10 from beyond the arc with 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals. He totaled his season total in fantasy points in 1 game. Really impressive. And then, of course, Damian Lillard. You know what we're getting from him. Prices come down a little bit, 9,100 on DraftKings, 9,800 on FanDuel. Break this backcourt down, and then we'll work over to Nurkic.
Yeah, I mean, I like both of them. I like the price on McCollum more than I do on Lillard. Obviously Lillard has a really high ceiling, but so does McCollum, as he just showed. And the usage really has not been an issue for McCollum this year. As much as we've talked about him playing all of his minutes alongside Damian Lillard, it hasn't affected his usage all that much. He comes into today with a 26.8% usage rate. Most of his issue this season was just that he was shooting incredibly bad, and we expected it to turn around. It, obviously all turned around in 1 game against Milwaukee. Um, Kind of like Klay Thompson did too. But, you
Yeah.
know, it's the point being that he still projects as a very good play where he's $6,500 because he is still playing 33 to 36 minutes every night. This is a pace up spot for Portland as well, and he's getting plenty of shots up. So I like him. Damian Lillard, I think, is a perfectly good play as well. He obviously has the higher usage rate. He's at 29.5%. He has the higher assist percentage as well, but the price tag just leaves a little bit less room for error, I think. Like, he can go out and give you 60 points. He's obviously going to do it more often than McCollum is, but at 9,100, I think Lillard is more likely to put up a score that hurts you than McCollum is at 6,500, which I don't think is surprising. But it just means that I'll probably end up with more McCollum in my lineups than Lillard.
Yeah, there's less meat on the bone when it comes to Lillard.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that. Let me ask you this: based on their price points, right? On DraftKings, Lillard 9,100, Chris Paul 8,200. I'm going to use Schroeder. I would say shooting guard. That's fine, and he's cheaper. He's 7K. He's a good play. Lillard 91, Paul 82, Irving 8,000 flat. Irving's got Boston. Chris Paul's got OKC, and of course Lillard's got the Clippers.
I have Irving, Lillard, and then Paul.
So do I. But I actually don't. I wouldn't even. I wouldn't have a problem flipping Paul and Lillard just based on point per dollar. But
I have
I
Irving and Lillard really close.
you have Irving and Lillard really close. Okay, fair enough. Nurkic is so we had a bit of a disagreement on this earlier today. So let's hash it out on the live stream. I had mentioned that I thought Nurkic could. I think Nurkic could see 30 minutes if Boban keeps starting and instead of playing 16, 17 minutes, plays 23, 24. Um, I think the more the Clippers go big, the more it helps Nurkic. That's not to say that I think Nurkic gets run off the court by Montrezl Harrell and only plays 20 minutes. I just think the more time Boban's out there, the more it could help Nurkic from a playing time standpoint. And you don't think any matchup could really affect his playing time tonight, right?
I mean, I agree with you. Like the more Boban plays, the more secure Nurkic's minutes are. But Harrell's not the kind of guy that I'm concerned about Nurkic losing minutes.
Right.
The concern would be that Collins plays against Harrell and just, is really, really good. And that's the reason Nurkic loses minutes. But like if Collins comes in and just plays completely like average for him basketball, I don't think that Nurkic stays on the bench just because Harrell's playing.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfectly reasonable point. It's not exactly like Harold's the type of guy that's going to come out there and jack up like 15 straight, 18 footers and just like, oh man, Harold's hot tonight. Get Yusuf off.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. I don't see that being the case, but I do think the more you have a 7'4" big man out there for the Clippers, the more you will need Nurkic just for rebounding and protecting the defensive glass. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
One other thing to point out that maybe makes Nurkic's minutes floor a little bit higher. So last game he didn't play. He played like 24 minutes, but he was in foul trouble. So don't look at the minutes too much. We're seeing Zach Collins get more time at the 4. 2 games ago, it was alongside Myers Leonard. But last game, he played a good 6 minutes in the third quarter alongside Yusuf Nurkic, which I didn't go back and double check, but that might be the first minutes they've played together all regular season. So if Terry Stotts is finally willing to get Zach Collins his minutes at a position other than exclusively the 5, I think that bodes well for Nurkic in terms of a floor as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. By the way, Myers Leonard is making $11 million this year.
No
That's
wonder they're trying to 11
crazy.
minutes or 12 minutes a night.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know why he even got into the rotation, but I guess may as well.
God, that's crazy, man. He's on a 4 million or 4-year, 40 mil contract. They made some mistakes in Portland. I'll tell you that much. They made some mistakes. Um, anyway, moving forward, I think you know what? I think how much do you think Evan Turner makes a year?
I know his contract's insane because I see him get made fun of for it on Twitter all the time, and sometimes he answers.
Does
But
he?
Yeah, he gets offended.
This year, a crisp 18 million for Evan Turner.
That's what Gorgie's making too, right? Somewhere around there.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 18. I know he's making a ton.
Yeah, he probably is. We don't have time to go over all of them, but I will tell you that Gorgie Jang this year is hauling in a solid 15 million. Jesus. God, I wish I was good at basketball and a little bit taller. Okay. I mean, I'm 6'1", but that's like, what's that?
So I wish I was mediocre at basketball and a little bit taller.
Yeah. Right. I'm not even short, but I'd be small for a basketball player unless I'm out there with like Ty Lawson. But he's crashing into a tree somewhere. Anyway, anything else for Portland that's interesting to you?
So I mean, I like Nurkic a lot. Aminu, I think, is a perfectly mediocre play. Same with Evan Turner. So I mentioned the Zach Collins playing minutes at the 4. It's not enough to make me still, want to play Collins. Like if I play Collins, it's in case Nurkic gets in foul trouble or something. But I think that it just makes Collins project a little bit higher since he is getting more minutes, not directly behind Nurkic.
Yeah, with you. On the other side, I think the Beverly thing is interesting, Adam, because and obviously it's not like I'm telling you anything you don't already know. The same with the listeners, but I do find it interesting because Gilgeous-Alexander started last game, and he ended up playing 25 minutes. Even though he only played 25 minutes, I think that bolsters Beverly's minutes as well. He played 39, and I'm not insinuating that I expect Patrick Beverly to play another 39 minutes. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think if they're next to each other in the starting lineup again, it will help his minutes. Just looking at the rotations here, SGA, not last game, but the game prior to that, came in when Beverly subbed out, and then came and then was subbed out for Beverly, directly for Beverly. So, and then again, the substitution was the same in the end or in the second half. So, not dealing with that with Gilgeous-Alexander subbing out for him does help him, in my opinion. And here's why: because Milos Teodosic last game, even though Gilgeous-Alexander started, only played 12 minutes, Adam.
Yeah, for most of the season, we've had, like you said, Beverly and Gilgeous-Alexander just sharing the point guard minutes, and it made Beverly at risk of losing playing time when the second unit got hot and Gilgeous-Alexander would stay out there. In addition to blowouts and foul trouble, we saw him losing playing time. But we've talked about it a lot that if you just go through the Clippers rotation, Beverly has been in line to play low to mid 30s if games stay competitive and he's not in foul trouble. Now with Bradley out and Gilgeous-Alexander starting alongside Beverly, you had Milos Teodosic move into basically take the Gilgeous-Alexander role as the backup point guard, but he's not necessarily someone that Doc Rivers is trying to get 20 minutes a night like he is with Gilgeous-Alexander. So it makes Beverly's minutes more secure. Every single one of Gilgeous-Alexander's minutes in that last game were alongside Beverly. He played, 0 point guard with Beverly on the bench. So yeah, I think that I have Beverly projected for 36 minutes tonight. Foul trouble and blowouts, obviously notwithstanding, I would be surprised if he doesn't get into the mid 30s, and it makes him just a clear top value.
All right. I'm with you. By the way, getting some love from the crowd. Marco Antonio Rosales, my dude. We'd love to have you here as well, my man. Got a bunch of other comments. Yeah, we love all of you guys. Chris O says we love Josh in South Philly. Oh, we got another Philly guy. All right. That's our dude. Well, Josh isn't on this show, so you're gonna have to love us for now, but we love Josh too. Um, anyway, hit us with a like. Show us some love by hitting us with a like. That's all we ask. And if you want a free week of premium content, use the promo code Deeper Dive when you sign up. You get a free week over there on awesemo.com. Spell it right. Don't be silly. All right. Anything else for the Clippers? We've only talked really about the backcourt here, but we still have some interesting pieces because Tobias Harris questionable to play.
Yeah, Tobias Harris missed shoot around today with an illness. If he does not play, then I think you see Mike Scott run into a bunch more minutes. I think that it helps solidify Lou Williams' minutes, and you get more usage for Gallinari as well as a couple additional minutes. So if Harris is out, you get a boost for all those guys. Even if he's in, though, I like Gallinari a lot, especially at $6,000 on DraftKings. I think that Gallinari is a way that you can get some upside into your lineup. He has the highest usage rate on the team, with the exception of Lou Williams and Boban, and he's just always priced less than Tobias Harris. Harris has done a better job rebounding this year. He plays a couple more minutes than Gallinari in most games, but I think that the price tag is just still too low on Gallinari. So I like him regardless of Harris, but I like him a lot if Harris is out.
All right. Yeah, if Harris is out, Gala becomes a really interesting play. You wrote the deep dive today, but I'm assuming that news came after you published it, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
It might have come like as I was writing it. I think I mentioned that Gallinari would get more minutes if Harris sat.
Only curious because I was wondering if you had looked up usage with Harris off the court.
I have not.
Yeah, I am going to look it up because now I'm really curious. I'm assuming he's been pretty involved, and you have guys like Lou Williams, but you don't really have anybody else that makes a huge impact offensively. A few guys from game to game. Go ahead while I look this up because I am interested. Round out the rest of this team. What are your thoughts? Josh liked Montrezl Harrell a lot today on the morning show. Anyone else here that stands out for the Clippers?
So yeah, I think you're still going to get the center minutes split between Boban and Harrell, and it makes it so I don't want to play them together. And I think that they're both perfectly reasonable plays. If I project Boban for 23 minutes, I still get him as a very nice option on DraftKings with like 30 fantasy points. It's possible he plays more minutes than that. It's possible he plays less. The point being that he clearly has upside if he only needs 23 minutes to get to where I would like him to. And then, but anytime the Boban's not on the floor, I expect Montrezl Harrell to be out there. He's obviously a very productive fantasy player when he gets the chance. He's a little more expensive than I would like. But if I can get Harrell to, maybe like 28 minutes or something, then I think he ends up being a good play. So out of the two of them, I would prefer Boban. But I think that in tournaments, either one is viable. Just don't play them together.
Man, it's crazy. Danilo's only played 35 minutes with Harris off the court this year. That seems crazy.
Yeah, that seems weird. Harris does play a ton, though.
He does. Lou Williams has a 35% usage rate with no Harris. I know people don't like playing him, but keep that in mind. I don't know if his minutes change, but if he plays all of the minutes he gets without Harris, then you're just seeing more opportunity for Sweet Lou. Um, we had a question in chat. I thought it was a pretty good one too. Will Aminu be guarding uh, Gallinari? That's what I'm assuming. Yes, Adam. I'm assuming he will if Harris is out. Uh, you
I'm
do
gonna
have Lou
he will
Williams, but
regardless.
what?
I would think he does regardless.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe not, but
Uh,
I
yeah,
thought he
it's tough. I mean, they're not that different of players, but yeah, Gallinari is just cheap enough where just keep a close watch on those on the Harris injury, and we'll move forward. Of course, Live Before Locks coming up next, and they'll keep you abreast of any updates that we don't get to hit on during this show. Boban, 27% usage without Harris. Gallo's down there at 22%. So nothing outstanding, but he can put some numbers up as well. Plus 35 minutes doesn't really tell you much. Per minute production is pretty sexy for Sweet Lou, though. 1.42 fantasy points per minute with no Harris on the court. All right, Adam, let's get to the marquee game on the docket. Golden State and Milwaukee, a 241.5 total. Warriors, 5.5-point favorites at home. That shows you that this is a respected Milwaukee team right now, Adam. And that's why we're going to start with them. That's why we're going to start with old Giannis Antetokounmpo. Dude, so many people, by the way, ask, why is he called the alphabet? Why is he called ABC? I, I, I thought that was common knowledge, but and this is not me insulting anybody. I just thought it was a nickname. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, look at all the letters in his name." If you know, it's because he has like every letter in his name. He doesn't,
right.
but it sure looks like it. And no one felt like saying Giannis Antetokounmpo because they struggled with it. Dan on the podcast would always call him Antetokounmpo, and I would laugh, and it wasn't intentional. So I think he just calls him Giannis now. Anyway, price came down $1,500 since his last game. Also a 4-game slate on Tuesday. Dude, he there's no way I'm not playing Giannis with Dre Green out. Like it's just I can't do it. I can't bring myself not to. It's crazy.
Yeah, especially on DraftKings where the price came down. On
Yeah.
FanDuel, if you can't get to that price tag, it's one thing. But
I was specifically talking about DraftKings
yeah,
here, by the way.
yeah. I mean, DraftKings again. Like I got burned rostering him a bunch against Portland last game, but I'm gonna go ahead and treat that like an outlier and not like the rule because the rates that he's posting this year just continue to be insane. He has like a 35% usage rate, a 20% rebounding percentage. His assist rate is up over 31%. I have him with a 24% expected assist percentage, but like you and I have talked about, he gets his guys so many open looks that I'm willing to say that he probably should, not regress all the way back to that 24% number. So, and then he should play huge minutes here in this spot against Golden State. So
Yeah.
there's nothing for me not to like. Draymond being off the floor doesn't hurt. Since the start of last season, when you put Clay, Durant, and Curry on the floor with Draymond, they have about a 111 defensive rating. Without him, it gets up to like 113.5. So no question that, not only is he their one of their best individual defenders, but he makes the whole unit better. So yeah, I really, really, really like the spot for Giannis. I think Bledsoe on DraftKings. I really think all three of the main guys from Milwaukee on DraftKings are too cheap. Like Bledsoe,
Way too cheap.
yeah, Bledsoe at 5,700, Middleton at 6,700. I think that they're both just really underpriced. And the fact that these guys are also cheap, normally I don't like playing them together because Giannis is expensive and he really has to do a lot to smash his price tag. But with how cheap Middleton and Bledsoe are, and there only being 4 games on this slate, I really don't mind playing like 2 or even 3 of these guys together in game stacks, basically.
Yeah, I hear you. By the way, tomorrow, a really nice, I haven't dug into it much at all, but just looking over a really nice 7-game slate. You'll want to tune into the deeper dive for that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And it'd be, a nice step up from this 4-gamer. But yeah, Giannis, just no doubt on it. Agreed. Those price tags on Bledsoe. I mean, Bledsoe hasn't been a guy that we've loved playing this year. But the truth is, and I think this is a mistake that's oftentimes made, and then we'll talk about Golden State. People think that Giannis being on the court just like kills Bledsoe and everyone else's production. But if you actually think about it, he doesn't. Like you could make a very good argument, Adam, that it could obviously take some shots away, but that it should free up a lot of room for them to be more efficient too.
Yeah, absolutely. You've talked a lot this season about how wide open, how frequently the Bucks shooters get wide open looks, whether it's Brooke Lopez or Chris Middleton or whoever. They that Giannis really helps in that regard. So it's something you see a lot if you play around with like NBA Wowie and you
Yep.
actually really look at stuff like beyond just the quick, oh, his usage rate goes up, his usage rate goes down. A lot of times you'll see like permanent production not change even though usage rate goes up, and it's because they're not getting passes from a really good passer anymore, or a guy like Giannis that has defenses collapse on him and gets you wide open looks. So even if Giannis is taking a couple of shots away from you, if you're going to get better looks, that still is really valuable.
Yeah. Also, please don't post fake shit in chat. That helps nobody. It's not cool. Uh, KD's not out. And if he is, this dude's got inside information. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, oh, by the way, I also think this could be a spot where Brooke Lopez jacks up like 10 3-pointers. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it definitely could be because
I
with
also think go ahead.
no, say what you're gonna say.
No, I also think it's a spot where you could possibly see the Villanova guy play more minutes.
Archidiak or no,
No,
DiVincenzo.
another Villanova guy.
DiVincenzo. Yeah,
Yeah.
DiVincenzo, yeah.
Um,
Archidiakono was drafted a couple of years ago, like 3,
yeah.
and never
Um,
plays for Chicago.
But yeah, I mean, just throwing him out there because he's 3,400 on DraftKings, and you're going to get a ton of ownership concentrated on the Golden State value side of this game. Whereas, if you can get DiVincenzo to 26 minutes or something, because
Yep,
this game goes small and you get Giannis at the 5 or something,
yep.
especially because Henson's questionable. I just think that there's a clear path to him,
All right,
being.
let me cut you off because we only have like a minute left. I'll say quickly, Milwaukee's biggest issue in defensively is the mid-range shot. Josh and I have talked about this a whole lot. The mid-range shooters tend to do better. Curry, not saying he can't crush them because he can crush anyone, but 55% of his shots come from beyond the arc. Meanwhile, KD takes a lot of mid-range shots. Klay Thompson too, but if I'm choosing KD or Curry, I do prefer KD here. Adam, I will let you close this show out with that, and of course, with which punch you think worked. The rest of the show is yours. You got about a minute.
Yeah. So I'm with you there. I like Curry and Durant both. I prefer Durant by a little bit. McKinney, I think, plays 25-ish minutes here. I don't think Jonas Jerebko is a crazy tournament option though, as a pivot away from what should be the really popular play in McKinney.
All right, is that it?
Yep.
All right, sounds good. Thanks as always for tuning in. We love you guys, man. We love this show. The Deeper Dive, promo code Deeper Dive, awesomeo.com. Get your free week. Join us. Join us. See what everything's about, man. Bill Butlicker says, great show. We see you in here every day, Bill, and we appreciate you. Hit that thumbs up before you head out. Good luck tonight. Also, Three Fellas Talking Football at 7:30 as well, breaking down the showdown slate between Pittsburgh and Carolina. Certainly going to be a fun one. Peace.